Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you guys are. My name is Duncan O'Fennon. You don't have to call me Duncan O'Fennon. You can call me Duncan. You can call me Robert. You can call me Bobby. Just don't call me sir. I'd like to start off by thanking CCN Network and especially Mel V for having the courage to put me on here and give me this show. I just hope I do the network justice. As if anybody out there that's listening to me knows me at all and has heard any of the interviews I've done in the past, I operate without a net. I never have a clue what I'm going to do or what I'm going to say. And that was pretty much the way it was going to be tonight. But then a thought came in and I decided since we have 2 hours tonight, is take the first hour and maybe rehash the whole MK Ultra thing just a little bit, but do it more on the human interest side, not as much the political or the scientific side, but more of the human interest side. But one of the things before we get started, I'd like to set straight about that is most of what we hear about MK Ultra is that it started in Nazi Germany just prior to World War II, and then via Project Paperclip, the scientists were brought here, and some to Germany, some to the Soviet Union, some to China, so on and so forth. That part is very true. However, the modern day form of MK Ultra, in the modern age, and I say the modern age because these techniques were used on an even more rudimentary scale all the way back to ancient Rome, back to the Spartans, with the way they would take young men, young boys, and start to train them for battle, so on and so forth. That's a show in itself. But the modern day form of MK Ultra actually started in the 1920s here in the United States, in the state of Virginia, with the Rockefeller Foundation and their beginnings of the eugenics project. And at that time, on their board and biggest supporters was a senator by the name of Prescott Bush. Now, Prescott Bush was the grandfather of George Jr., former president, and the father of George Sr. At the onset of World War II, the technology and the experiments were taken then to Nazi Germany, where they were allowed to go unfettered, no checks, no balances. And they thought, perfected at that time before they were brought back via Project Paperclip, as I mentioned before. But they weren't really that successful. They didn't become successful until the mid 1950s. And here's where we begin with the human interest side of what I want to talk about in the first hour. Over the past couple of months, a lot of questions have been asked, concerns raised about people like myself, John Storm, the now deceased David Corso, and what few others of us out of these projects from that time era. With the question is how safe are we to be around? Well, we're very safe. I'm going to try to put this into perspective without getting really long-winded with it. At the end of the day, even with what was done to each of us, and we all went through a lot of the same thing, but so much of it was done individually, depending on each of our abilities, our psyches, our will, if you will. But at the end of the day, we still have our core. We still who we are inside. Even when we were broken down as children and alternate personalities were in place, we still maintained the core of who we are. And as we grew older, that core remained. And also, as we grew older, the programming began to break down. Now, in my case, it broke down many, many years before it was designed to. I guess they didn't figure that the chip would be able to go through an MRI machine cranked up really high. But that's what happened to me. The cranial implant that is here next to the pineal gland malfunctioned. It basically just burned out, and it allowed all the memories from the alternate personality, the core personality, to merge in. And that's rough. But that is what has happened to so many of us. And what we went through, and still do to a much lesser degree for some of us, is likened to severe PTSD. The physical shocks and traumas come back at that time. You basically relive everything. Also, the psychological and the mental shocks and traumas come back. And it's identical to suffering through PTSD. And the problem with this is most of us had no support system. So once we began to reintegrate, we went through a tremendous amount of suffering, and we all had to do it alone. And on the human side of all of this, that's one of the really sad things. Now, there are groups of people out there purposely flooding the internet, and in some cases, mainstream media, is that we're all portrayed as snap at any time, terminate everyone around us, go into rages. Nothing could be farther from the truth. And again, here I'm speaking for me and to some degree John Storm, because John Storm and I know each other very well. He was one of my instructors when I was very young, and we've remained good friends even up to this day. It all comes down to your will. You make a conscious decision on what it is you want to do. I made a conscious decision that I wanted to be whole. I wanted to be me, no matter what the pain or what the cost. And it took several years. And I really think, to a great degree, it's really unfair for some people out there. I mean, especially on YouTube channels and whatnot. I'm not going to get into start to knocking people or knocking this and that. But I just feel that before we can begin to do a weekly show, I think this needs to be explained. To say that we could snap at any time is an unfair statement. Anyone out there can snap at any time. We see it in the news all the time, every day. It all depends on you. It depends on the person. It depends on me. It depends on every other survivor, every other person that has gone through a government project like this. And I made that conscious decision to merge two other personalities with the core. And as I said, that's when I began to understand you cannot strip away the core. It remains. So any alternate personality that is forced into your psyche must have part of your original core there. So you have a common thread, you have a connection. And I used that. And honestly, I had no choice. This is why so many people that come out of these projects wind up in mental hospitals, or they wind up taking their own lives. Is when you have two or more conflicting personalities, each vying or jockeying to be the one in front, to be the one taking the wheel. It becomes an internal struggle and an internal fight, and it doesn't stop. So I made the conscious decision to sit down and let the three merge together. Each slightly different than the core, but each with the core basics of what I was born with. So it was like three parts merging back together to become what I should have been in the first place. Now, I'm trying to figure out exactly how to say this. It's difficult. Some of us, yes, absolutely, received training that was beyond anything most people could comprehend. And in some ways, yes, that makes us an extremely dangerous adversary. But there's a flip side to every coin that also makes us an extremely and highly advanced and loving protector. That's something no one ever brings up. When myself and others started to do these things, it's when you really find out just how human you are. And we're just like everyone else. You know, I mean, we eat, well, I would say we sleep, but some of us don't. We eat, we sleep, we try to love, we try to be just like everyone else. And for the most part, we are. It's just that in some ways, yes, we are different. We've experienced things. We know things. We've been trained in aspects that no one else has. So that it doesn't make us better, but it sets us apart just a little bit. It's the difference of having a group of factory workers here and a small group of highly trained special ops soldiers here. Okay. The, the soldiers can work the factory just as well as they can, but yet they're set aside because of the additional training and knowledge that they have. That's kind of how we fit in with all of this. But to really answer people's questions and concerns about, are we safe to be around? If someone goes out to dinner with us, are they going to come back? Yes, absolutely. You know, I have done a couple of shows recently. And by the way, it's a little undaunting being on this end of the microphone. I'm not used to this. So if I flub up tonight, I'll say I'm sorry before I even do that. One of the things that myself and people like us, it was drilled into our heads from childhood over and over and over and over and over. You are unworthy. You are unworthy to be cared about. You are unworthy to be loved. You are unworthy of this. You are unworthy of that. Well, nothing is farther than the truth. Everyone is worthy of forgiveness. Everyone is worthy of giving love and receiving love. And it took me, honestly, just until a few months ago to realize that and to shake that part off. And I was really surprised with how easy it was. So Love you, Pix. I know you're listening. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we're just like everyone else, and we like to be treated just like everyone else. We don't like to be treated like a three-headed hydra coming up out of the ground, because that's not what we are. It isn't what we are at all. We're just people trying to do the best we can do every day. But one of the things that going through what we have gone through does, it makes us care about things and others even that much more, because we have a unique understanding of pain and the pain and suffering that people go through. We're more how can I phrase this? We understand it more, and it's easier for us to reach out to those people. And then the other thing I want to touch on is the emotions, and especially that of hate. And I am the first one to admit, when this chip burned out and all the memories from both sides came in and they locked up, I was so filled with hate and rage that all I could think about was destroying everything and everyone that was responsible for it. And it burned away for a very, very long time. But this message isn't just for the people like me. This is for everyone. This world right now is filled with hate, and we've got to let it go. You cannot help someone else if you're filled with hate. It just doesn't work that way. And I do healings on people. That's one of the things that I found out I could do a very long time ago. I can heal people. That comes from my grandfather's side, who was a Cherokee medicine man in his own right. And you cannot help or heal another if you are filled with hate. Because when you're putting your energy into someone else to help them, whatever your energy is tainted with, you're going to give to them. So I had to let all that go years ago. And if anyone else out there even thinks about doing this, you've got to do the same thing. You have got to let it go. I'm not talking about what's known as righteous anger. As an example of righteous anger, if we're walking down the street and we see a group of people pouring gasoline on a homeless person and setting him on fire, if we don't get angry with that, then we're dead inside. But you do something about the situation, you do what you can, and then you release the anger. Righteous anger is not the same as hate. It's not the same as a road rage type anger. It's not the same as someone's taken too long in the checkout line kind of anger. That's non-essential anger. You don't need that anger. The world right now has no patience for anything. And if it ever needed it, it needs it now. Where else to go with this? Just trying to get all these thoughts out of my head in the initial opening here. Like I said, this is why we call this show Shoot from the Hip. Whatever comes out, comes out. And I'm hoping I can fill 2 hours here. I am going to have guests on. Take this time to ask Mel V to be number one, since she put me on here. And then I want to get John Storm, Randy Moggins, My Pay, and several other people that I have in mind. And maybe talk about the news of the week in the first hour, guest in the second. I've got a lot of ideas, and I've got other people giving input on this. I think we're going to make this thing fly. But I just felt that this was something that I needed to get out right off the bat so everyone could understand where I'm coming from. And if anyone listening has heard a lot of the older interviews that I've done, I've had people contact me and say, you're not the same. You've changed. You're right. I'm not the same. I was the same person in my core. Okay. I still cared. I still had all the compassion. I still had this, but I still had the anger. Once you let the anger go, boom, everything comes into focus. And you find out that, yeah, as dark as things are, you can find some light in that darkness. And that's what we need right now, are more little flashlights in that darkness. And get all those flashlights shining at once and put them all together and let that light just explode out. And then keep moving from there. Um, Thinking fast. As far as the whole MK Ultra thing and the super soldier thing, and I'll be straight up front, I despise the term super soldier. It's a Hollywood term. It conjures up images of Van Damme, Lundergan, and all these other big, huge bodybuilder types doing the movies and one. That is not even close to what it really was. Some of the technology was a little close, but as far as what was done and how it took place, no, it isn't even close. No, I'm not drawing a blank. I'm just choosing my words very carefully. I think the big thing for myself, just rounding this whole subject up so we can move on. The big thing here with people like myself, John Starm, and a few others is that all we ask of people is give us a chance. Don't judge us by what you read on the internet. Don't judge us by comments others make or we make on YouTube channels or forums or whatnot. Talk to us. If there's something about us you want to know, ask us. Go to the source. Look in the horse's mouth, if you will. But don't go around asking everyone else. Just come to us and ask. We will be straight. We will shoot from the hip. And we'll be brutally honest. And for myself, if I don't have an answer, I will tell you, I don't have a damn clue. But I might know someone you can go to find out. Just give us a chance. And I'm going to corkscrew into the whole comment thing. I guess it's time to come clean on a couple of things. Over the years, as anyone's ever noticed, anytime myself or Storm, or if you ever do an interview or whatnot, and it goes up on YouTube, okay, there's always these hundreds of people that come flocking in with not only negative comments, but they're inflammatory. Now, these are designed to push buttons because they want us to come back in a like manner. Well, I've made it a short career of pushing their buttons. When these people would make their comments, when they thought they were pushing my buttons, because they would come in anonymously or with fake names, brand new YouTube channels, whatever, I would push their buttons. And then by their response, I would know almost exactly who they were, what their motives were, and exactly what they were trying to do and why. So if you're researching us and you're getting your information from there, don't. Because Storm and I are very good at reversing things around on people. And when they think they're pushing our buttons, we're pushing theirs. And we've done that so many times. I actually found that it was multiple family members that were making the comments. And the only way I found that out was to reverse it on them and push their buttons. And then I got the information and proof of who they were. So that covers that. And that also goes for some of the internet forums out there. We would do the same thing there. And also, while we're on this, there have been numerous times when people would use our names, our email addresses, and whatnot, and make comments and post things saying they were us. As an example, someone did this a few years ago when I was 100 miles away from a computer. I hadn't even touched a computer in weeks, and come back and I find that someone had posted all this stuff around using my name, my email address, and people contacting me saying, "Why did you say this and say that?" I'm like, "I didn't say it." So that happens a lot. So again, just to round that up, you want to know something about me, ask me. I have no problem sitting down over a pint of Guinness, a cup of coffee, whatever, and looking you straight in the eye and answering any question you've got. I'm not shy, but I'm usually not an ass either. But I am just straight up. Okay, where do we want to go? I know where I want to go in the second part. One of the things as we get going along with the shows, I want to bring some people on and talk about magic, not witchcraft, not voodoo, not hoodoo, not Wicca, nothing like that, but magic. Magic is my second most favorite thing in this world. Second. The first thing stays, that's private. Magic comes from the power of creation itself. Magic created everything. Magic is natural. And whether most of us believe it or understand it or not, we use magic every day. Most of the old nursery rhymes that you learned in school or from your grandmother or your mother or whatnot were actually derived from magic spells. Magic spells are words of power used in rhyme to create a change in your environment. That's all it is. Magic comes from the power of love. It is pure. It's silver. We say it's silver when we mean it's pure. Nothing is more pure than magic or unconditional love. Nothing is greater. There is no such thing as black magic. there is only magic. However, there is intent. It's the same as, I like to use the analogy of two people going to a well to drink water. Both are very thirsty. Well, that cup of water could save their lives. That same cup of water, if one of them decided to push it over the other's nose and mouth, can drown that person. It's the same cup of water. It's the same water. It's not the water's fault. It's the intention of the individual. It's the same with magic. It's the intention of the user or the practitioner. The only thing that I would say that separates, in the whole scheme of things, white magic from black magic or dark magic is the sacrificial component. Dark magicians, or as we would call black magic practitioners, are the ones that usually use the human sacrificial component. There is nothing more abhorrent, there is nothing more evil than sacrificing another human life for your personal gain or the gain of a group. Nothing is worse. I think while we're on this, we'll just continue with it for a little bit. There are things in magic that there's rules to magic. All right. There are things you can do and things you cannot do. You cannot use magic for your own personal gain. You can't do it. It's against the rules. You cannot use magic to make someone love you. That is against the rules, because you are subjugating someone's free will. You have nothing greater in you than your soul and your free will. You cannot take someone's free will away. Like, you cannot trap their soul. Okay, they do it with technology, but get where I'm coming from. Magic is supposed to be used to help others, not to harm. Magic is not evil. How can something that came from creation itself be evil? It isn't. It's the intention of the person, of the individual. And unfortunately, just like the water in the well, it has been corrupted, it has been subjugated, and people are using it to control others. And that is increasing exponentially almost daily. And it has to stop. Some of us are working on it, but we could use use a little more help. One of the big things that I see out there today on radio shows, bookstores are really filled with this, are something along the lines of financial success by magic, spells for money. Guys, it doesn't work that way. What I wanted, and I don't know if it played, because we don't hear these things when it came on, was the intro song was Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train. Well, what I had in my mind was Crazy Train or Gravy Train. I'll take the Crazy Train anytime, because money ain't everything. You know, the Beatles wrote a song, "Money Can't Buy You Love." They were damn right. They were absolutely correct. Money cannot buy your love. It never could, never will, never, and never has been. So to finish up, magic is to be used for good. It's to be used to help others. And let's dovetail this in with all we have are our free will and our souls. We keep, and again, God, I'm shooting from the hip here, okay? I have no papers. I have nothing. I'm just opening my mouth and the things they just to come out. That's all I know to do. We have wars going on. Okay. For right now, let's dismiss the human side of these wars. We have Syria, the other wars in Africa, ISIS, ISIL, ISICL, ISPOP, whatever their name is today. I mean, who knows? Let's put this aside for just a minute. All these, as bad as they are, as horrendous as they are nothing but distractions and sacrifices. Wars of these kinds are sacrifices. The whole thing that the unseen war, the war that's going on all around us every day, all the time, that some of us see, most of us don't. Some of us fight it every day, most of us don't. This war is about the human soul. The human soul, I've said this before and I'll say it 1,000 times again. The human soul is as powerful as a small nuclear reactor. That's why it's so important to these people. That's why when you hear they want your soul, they want your soul, they do, because it is that powerful. And it's kind of delve into the impossible side just a little bit, the supernatural side. Human souls are used as currency by these people. And when I say these people, I'm talking about the people, the beings who are really in charge, the ones who are really running things. If you think your government is in charge, no. If you think your president or your prime minister is in charge, no. They do what they're told. They always have. The human soul, with all of its power, if you give it over freely, of your own free will, if you give it over, it's gone. Which means the person or groups that you gave it over to can use its energy as they see fit. And believe me, they do. And I've said this before, it's better to die with your soul intact than to live on forever and lose it. Because in the end, it's all you've got. When you cross over from here to the Great Divide, you don't take the physical body with you, it's your soul, which then manifests back into the physical reality on that side. It's all you've got. It's who you are. It's your core. We keep coming back to the core. Your soul is your core. Never give it up for no reason. Now, as I said, sacrifices. I saw something on National Geographic a couple of months ago that made me sit up. It kind of made things start turning a little bit. A lot of people, I'm an insomniac. I don't sleep very much. I may be up at 3, 4 a.m. in the morning watching something on TV or going out to a Waffle House for coffee or something. You never know with me. But they were talking about the history of human sacrifice and how they used it to appease their gods or their deities, or to create a power source. That's all true. The problem is right now, what we have going on is, especially in the Middle East and various parts of Africa, with the Boko Harams and all these people, these are sacrifices. These are literal human sacrifices taking place. The people that are really in charge feed off those sacrifices. What they're doing generates fear, anxiety, every negative emotion that there is, and they feed off of that. They feed from that. Now, suspending your fear in a dangerous situation is much easier said than done. I know I've been there. I've been through things where I literally wanted to wet my pants. I was that scared. But being scared doesn't get the job done. You swallow it up, you do the job, you deal with it later. There's nothing wrong with being afraid. There's a difference in being afraid and being filled with fear. Being filled with fear is someone who's afraid to walk across the street. They're not afraid of dying, they're afraid of living. I mean, dying's easy, living's what's hard. Uh-oh. Okay. I lost the internet connection for a second. It is so easy for me to sit here and say, do away with the negative emotions. That's easy to say. But to do it takes work. And it's not something that you succeed in on Monday and the success carries over into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It doesn't work that way. You have to do it every day. You have to get up every morning and make that conscious decision on how you're going to live your life that day. Am I going to live this life today in fear, in hate, in anger, in jealousy? Or are you going to live that day? Not the rest of your life, just that day. Are you going to get up and live that day just the best that you can? To have compassion for the people around you and just do good for someone else. You know, we hear religious people talk about doing good to others covers a multitude of sins. That's true. We also hear on the other side, doing good to others cancels out karma. That's also true. Nothing strengthens your soul or you. Nothing is more healing than helping someone else. This is why most healers, the good ones, are known as wounded healers. You can't help someone if you haven't experienced it before. It's like having a gunshot wound, going to the ER, and the doctor looking at you and saying, oh, it's not in a bad place. Can't be hurting that bad. Yeah, right. You're talking to somebody who's been shot several times. Gunshot wounds hurt. No matter what they say. But you have got, if you can't have compassion for others, you can't expect people to have compassion for you. If you can't give love to others freely, you can't expect others to give love to you freely. This is the weapons to use against the darkness. Not guns, not bullets, not tanks, not jets. Won't work. It will not work. I used to think that same thing. I was that way. I thought from the mind of a soldier. I thought from the mind of a warrior. On the physical side, hey, it's great, works. You start knocking out the enemy, boom, body count just keeps going up. Great. But you know what you're doing? You're feeding the bad guys. You're powering them up. You're juicing them up. They draw energy from their guys being taken out just as much as the good sides. people being taken out. You just keep powering them, empowering them, empowering them. It's what they want. They want all of us to be in conflict. Just like what I said earlier, there are people out there that try to push our buttons publicly to get us to scream, to rant, to rave, to yell, to so on and so forth. It's not going to happen. And if we're doing it, we're pushing your buttons and having fun with it. Sorry about that. I can sit here all night long and talk this stuff. And I can probably make it sound easy to do. It's not easy. It isn't easy. And even if you're successful on Monday, you've got to do it again on Tuesday. Tuesday may be a harder day than Monday. And you fall. It's not how many times you fall, as the saying goes. It's how many times you get your butt back up. Because that's another weapon of the dark side. Especially when you've started practicing compassion and love in your life, in your day-to-day being. They will try and knock you down every opportunity they get. And they will try to knock you down till you refuse to get back up. And you can't let them do that. It's a war. It's a spiritual war. It's a psychic war. And it's a physical war. All rolled into one, being fought on different levels, different sides, and different planes. But it's all encompassing, but at the same time, it's all heading toward the single point, the end game. And we're getting there. So I suggest everybody start getting ready for it. Okay. I have an idea. We've touched on the MK Ultra. We've touched on the humanistic connection down again. Thank you. Let's touch on the whole demonic versus fallen angel versus jinn versus whatever name you want to call some of these other spooks. So bear with me on this. This is something I do get just a tad bit passionate about. First things first, fallen angels ain't demonics. They're two totally different beings. They're completely different. A fallen angel is just that, a fallen angel. An angel that has been cast down or has fallen from its state of grace. It is not turned into this ugly, hideous monster. It has not been stripped of its power, and I say it because there's the whole asexual part of angels that no one really quite understands. It's a spiritual being. They can take any shape or form that they want. So it's just easier to call it than he or she. But they are not the same thing. However, fallen angels do have under their command legions of demons. So we start from the bottom and work our way up. Let's say you have 100 of what's called worker soldiers or worker demons. They're the low level things. They're the lowest that there is. Still immensely more powerful than a human being, but at the same time, they're the lowest on the scale. They're nearly identical. And you can almost call them clones, if you would. They're commanded by a higher demonic. Now, this is why you see so many people around the world, or especially in neighborhoods, all exhibiting the exact same symptoms and characteristics. Because this demonic who has this 100 under its control, under its command, sends them out. They get their power from the boss. They all act identically. So if they're attaching or inhabiting someone, they all exhibit the exact same symptoms. That's how it works. This demonic, and then this one over here, and this one over here, is going to be under the control of a higher tier of demonics. And as we go up that ladder, we go up that tier, they become more and more powerful until you get all the way up to the top and you have the top tier. Well, guess who controls the top tier? Fallen angels. They control the top all the way down. This whole thing bubbles around. We're in a war, and yes, it is a physical war, it is a spiritual war, it is a psychic war, but at the same time, so many humans are being used as cat's paws. They're caught up in fighting this, and yet they don't realize what's going on. They don't realize who, when, why, if, nothing. Total cat's paw. And it's been designed that way. This is what I like to call breaking out of the matrix, is when you finally wake up and see and understand what really is going on around you. And then you can step out of that and start protecting yourself and start working and fighting for yourself and others. The jinn. Most of the literature say that the jinn were here well before humans and anything else. The jinn was here when the earth was still a void. They're interdimensional beings. They're half in and half out, and mostly native to the Middle Eastern countries and Africa. I straight up don't know a lot about them. I've only dealt with one immensely powerful creature, and I hope I never have to deal with another one. This all, and again, this just keeps tying, everything ties in. And then we have the aliens, the whole UFO thing. I don't even go there very often. Interdimensional beings and whatnot, yeah, there's tons of those. You've heard me talk about what's known as the 9 realms. This is from ancient Norse, with the whole 9 realms. You have Asgard, High Elven, Midgard, which is Earth, Jotunheim, Oskenheim, and so on and so forth. Okay, down on the bottom is hell. Above the 9 realms is the angelic realm. It's separate from the 9, yet interacts with the 9. And when you figure that one out, give me a call, because I'm still working on it. Someone asked me once if I believed in aliens. Actually, what they asked was, did I believe in little green men? Yeah. And I have since I was a child. I remember being on a farm one night out in the middle of nowhere and looking up at the sky, seeing the Milky Way, seeing everything there, and just knowing that we cannot be here alone, that there has to be others out there. And I have without going into too much detail, I have met a couple. They were sitting at a table of all things when I was dragged into a meeting. And when I say I was dragged, yes, I was dragged. Hood over my face, hands on my shoulders, being dragged in, the whole thing. So yeah, I just don't think to the point of what some of the other people out there say, that there's alien races walking around. No, I'm sorry, I don't buy into that. There are tons of supernatural creatures out there that are real. Pretty much about half of what you read in the original Grimm's fairy tales, it's pretty much real in one shape, form, or another, but it's pretty much real. That's something I would like to get into on another show when I have someone on here to help me. It's easier to talk about when you can communicate back and forth and argue about it. But I'll tell you this. One of the last jobs or assignments that I was sent on while I was still part of the whole MK stuff was a crash retrieval. And one of the people there was named John Morrow. John was much older than me. He was the son of Colonel John Morrow, who was the base commander at Wright Pat Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. Well, this was somewhere in a South American jungle, and myself and my team got there. We're looking at this craft. It's round, dome on top, dome on the bottom, sitting like this, in the dirt. It came in, did the whole slide, baseball slide thing. Looked like your typical UFO flying saucer until I picked up a pair of binoculars and looked at it. And there it flat said, USAF, United States Air Force, American flag, X-1, and then dirt covering the rest of it. X means experimental aircraft. This thing looked like it was big enough to carry 3 men. And what I found out years later, it was an experimental craft that used a small nuclear power plant, going back to that small nuclear power plant and the whole soul thing as its propulsion. And our orders were to retrieve it or destroy it. We didn't get to do either one. The damn thing blew up. I didn't remember anything for a long time. But do I believe in alien life and that there are? Yes. Come on, there has. Yes. Without going into anything greater. Okay, we're coming up on the first hour and I haven't shut up yet. All right. I know there's some people out there listening because I shot this to a bunch of people and they have my phone number. If they have questions or anything they want to know, just shoot me the text. It's great. Second hour. What do we want to talk about? I'm just trying to get it moderately personal as I can so that it gets the biography out of the way. This way, as these shows progress, if anyone has questions about, okay, who is this dork with the long hair talking and whatnot, just go back and listen to this one. This sets you up and tells you who I am, what I'm about, so on and so forth. And I seriously doubt if we will go the full 2 hours, probably an hour and a half. Because quite honestly, I haven't slept for 2 days. My fault. Where do we go? Politics. I majored in political science in college. Hated it. Sports, can't stand pro sports, except for hockey. Um, some of the biggest questions that I've had over the years concerns 9/11, CERN. Um, I think we can probably touch on those two. Start with 9/11. Do I believe 9/11 was an inside job? Hell yes. Uh, Too many things did not add up even on the day of 9/11. I remember getting out of bed late and turning the TV on just as the first tower collapsed. I had no idea what I was looking at. And the first thing that I said was, damn, what a nice demolition job. Because that is exactly what it was. Those towers were wired and primed, and they collapsed just as they were supposed to, straight down. That was an absolute beautiful demolition job. Now, who did it? I don't know. And most likely we may never know. But it was a demolition job. And the whole story about the jet fuel melting the steel, weakening the steel, no. But think about this, even if that were true, they still would not have fell boom, 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 straight down. They would have fell this way, one side or the other, to whichever side weakened the most. It would have fell that way, just like chopping down a tree. You cut the notch, you cut behind, bam, tree falls on the weakest end. The Twin Towers would have done the exact same thing. One of the first things that came to my mind was just at the end of the Vietnam War, there was an aircraft carrier that was about to be retired. Now, for the life of me, I cannot remember the ship's name. It was John McCain, now Senator John McCain's ship. He was the one who, to be blunt, was drunk jacking around on his plane and boom, fired a missile on deck that they said was an accident that shot into the fuel depot, all this fighter jet fuel. Hundreds of thousands of gallons of fighter jet fuel on fire, running over the deck, below deck. The ship didn't melt. No holes were burned through the steel, nothing. And this ship, hundreds of people died. It was a great tragedy, but this ship made it to port on her own power. She didn't sink. And hundreds of thousands of gallons of burning jet fuel running below decks, between decks, through galleyways, and she made it home. So when the media tells me that jet fuel burning down the steel brought the buildings down, come on. If anybody believes that, I got some land in Georgia right now that I can let go really, really cheap. CERN, something very dear to my heart. The Large Hadron Collider. Yeah. Okay, I keep pausing because I keep getting this message going across the screen saying my internet's is down. CERN is a nasty piece of business. Um, it is exactly what they say it is. It is a particle accelerator. And they are actually doing real, legitimate scientific experiments. Problem is, it's being used to cascade a series of events that will not be good. A few minutes ago, I mentioned the 9 realms. We're in the middle. It's what the ancient Norse called Midgard. It's what we call planet Earth. To hear this borderlines on science fiction. So what I would ask you to do is suspend your disbelief and just hear it for what it is. I try to take out the lore. I try to take out the mythology and only talk about the scientific aspect of it. Are there other dimensions? Yes, it's been proven over and over. One of the things that some of us say is, what's taken science so long to catch up with what we've always known? There are 9 realms, 9 layers, as it were. Just imagine 9 layers. We're in the center. The lower you go, the lower the vibration. The lower the vibration, the greater the darkness. The higher you go, the higher the vibration, the greater the light. Okay, doesn't mean everybody up here is great. It doesn't. There's bad guys up here too. But the higher the vibration, the higher the light. The lower the vibration, the darker. With us in the middle, CERN is designed, its ultimate goal, its ultimate purpose is to create a vortex or a portal or an opening, a doorway from here to the lowest. It has two phases. One would be to let things from here come through. This used to happen a lot, way back when. Every military base in the world is built on or around a naturally occurring portal. Since most of them are very small, but each and every one is built on or around near a naturally occurring portal. What they want to do is generate so much power as to literally, keep in mind, 9 layers, okay? We're in the middle. Pull these layers together, okay? That would be actual literal hell on earth. Going to merge. We keep hearing people talking about the merging of timelines is upon us. Yeah, there's a merging upon us if it takes place, but it ain't a timelines. It's the merging of the lower dimension with the mid dimension or the mid realm, and bam. Some of us can't let that happen. There have been people that have said and talked about, oh my God, you're talking about stopping. That's a terrorist act. No. By the time they lose control of this thing, I have to phrase this just right. What I can say publicly is this. Over the past few months, things have changed. New players have came into the game. A couple of really powerful players have came into this game. And they have changed things concerning CERN a lot. And the same as signing a non-disclosure form. I have to be very careful in the wording that I use so I don't get my ass kicked up between my shoulders. The way CERN was going to be dealt with in the past is not the way it will be dealt with in the future. But it will be stopped. There is no way this merging can be allowed to take place. And here is where every person out there can play their part in this. Just stop. Stop hating. Stop killing. Stop feeding the darkness. Stop keeping them plugged in and being charged up. Because all that power that's being given to them is going to be used to power this thing. Okay? Cut them down from a 340 to a 110 and it won't work. It just simply won't work. That's what's being tried right now. People over the years have asked me, they've written me, they've asked me in public, what can I do to help? What can I do to help you? What can I do to help others? I just told you. Change your perspective. You want to help? Be good to somebody. Let's cut the juice down that the dark side uses. Let's take them down from a 340 down to a 110. And then hopefully take them down to a 9-volt battery so that they just fizzle out into nothing. That's what I hope for. That's what I want. What more? Gosh, I don't know. Where to go? What can we do? Put this out in the ether. What does anybody want? The weather? Okay, nice winter, right? I love winter. I love the cold. I love the snow. Yeah, this particular winter, especially on the East Coast, the storms have kind of been generated just a little bit. They've served a very major purpose. They've kept Washington, D.C. shut down when they needed to be shut down. And just like black operations move under the cover of darkness, there are other beings that move under the cover of winter, under the cover of snow and of the cold. These storms were a good thing. A lot of good stuff was carried out under their cover. Of course, there's always the cause and effect. You can't have you can't have major snowstorms without major pileups on the roadways and people getting hurt. As cause and effect. And the needs of the many do outweigh the needs of the few or the one. And with that part being said, I heard that Leonard Nimoy died today. Of all the actors and whatnot out there, he was one that I always wanted to meet. I met William Shatner years ago. Shatner, oh honey, yeah, okay, sorry. Shatner is okay, but I think Nimoy was my favorite. Been requested to talk about something, and this, I think for tonight, this will be the last thing that I talk about. As some people saw, some people know, I took a job a few months ago, and again, please set aside your disbelief for a moment and open up to the possibilities that there are things out there beyond the natural and beyond the norm. Once you've been part of it and you've lived it, you're never the same. And I've been part of it and I've been living it for most of my life. The supernatural is real. There are beings out there that will make you quake in your shoes. I've always been considered one of the toughest, strongest, fastest, most well skilled, and highly trained individuals out there. Yet I have been face to face with beings that look beautiful on the outside, that I keep my head down. That is actually how powerful some of these are. I'm going to try this. Okay. Okay, I'm trying to twist. That's a job description. That is a combination of an ice crystal and a snowflake. There is a being out there known as the Winter Queen. She's Fae. The Fae truly do exist. Fairies, pixies, sprites, so on and so forth, are real. They live in a different vibration than we do. They're much higher than we are, but they interact with this planet. Many of them make this planet their home, even if it's temporary. For certain favors granted, I agreed to become the Winter's Knight. I cannot go into great detail, but it is a great honor, and it comes with a tremendous responsibility. And with that responsibility comes also a tremendous increase in power. And I just hope I can fulfill the obligations that have been laid on me honorably and to satisfaction. Doesn't mean I'm going to walk around in armor carrying a ancient medieval broadsword or anything like that. That doesn't happen. It's a job title, and I would not have taken it if it did not coincide with the job I was already sent here to do. The two complement each other. That is the only way I would take it. The supernatural realm and all of its inhabitants are something that I would like to spend a lot of time on. That is something that has been so misunderstood over time. So many false. Yes, I know my internet connection is unstable. It's a Wi-Fi. What do you think? Um, so many misconceptions have been put out about the supernatural world. And I would like over time to try and set the record straight with at least some of that. Anything else, hon? Yes, I am talking to one certain person. Um, I really don't know exactly where to go more with being the winter's night without overstepping boundaries, except to say that it's a job that I knew I would have when I was very young. I was told I would have this when I was a young teenager. And of course, like so many people out there listening to this now, you don't believe it. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it then. And sometimes I still have a hard time believing it. But even with disbelief, it's real. It's all very real. And as a wrestling friend of mine says, it's real. It's damn real. It's more real than the make believe world that we live in that's around us. Puppet politicians, false economies, people in the government and the media trying to tell us what's good, what's bad. You know, they they've continuously for generations tried to turn us around our own moral compass. We all have one. We're born with it. We're born knowing left from right. We're born knowing right from wrong. We're born knowing good from evil. It's just as we grow and what we're subjected to sets that compass spinning. But no matter how it spins, in that core, we still know what's good and what's evil. It's we make that choice. Do we walk the path of evil? Do we walk the path of darkness, or do we walk the middle? Do we walk the gray? I walked the gray. That was my job. Keep the balance between the two. Those days are almost up. Even the people who walk the gray decide left or right, right or left, up or down. Um, I choose to fight for humanity, for the human race, always. The argument that I made all those years ago when I was dragged into a meeting, and when I say I was dragged, yeah, I mean I said it before. I was dragged in. They put a freaking black hood over my head. The whole thing put me in the back of a car. It was a lot of fun. What I told these people there, even then, is that yes, there are some really nasty people on this planet. But at the same time, there are some really good people. And you can't walk away from what's good, or at least I can't. And the human race deserves the right to grow, to make its mistakes, to fall down, to keep getting back up without interference. And my exact words is when I pointed to a couple of people over here on this side is you people have done nothing but jack with the human race since day one. It's never had a chance, yet you're passing judgment on something that you rigged the deck with. Uh-uh. No, no, no. That crap don't fly. You want to pass judgment on something, let it be fair. Let it be a fair game. It's never been a fair game. I guess what I would ask anyone out there who listens to this, suspend your disbelief just for a moment. Look beyond the veil to what's really going on out there, what's really going on around you. You know you've been lied to. You know you've been jacked around with. You know you've been force-fed, spoon-fed, lie after lie for generations. At least for a moment, step away from that and look at the possibilities of so much more, because it's there. And just because you don't believe it doesn't mean it's any less true. But if you look for the truth, you will find it. And I will reiterate one more time. If there's something you want to know about me, talk to me. Okay? I'm really easy to talk to. And to the guys running the board, thank you. As Mel said, if I didn't make the full 2 hours, no problem. Hey, I did an hour and a half. I did a half hour better than I expected I would. Okay. Uh, next week, yeah, next week is planned, and I'll let it be a surprise. And I like to close out by using a quote that a good friend of mine, named of Max Corona. No, it's not his real name. He's a disc jockey at a local radio station. And he uses this as he closes his show every day. And I contacted him and got permission to use it as well. So, Max, back at you. Some days you win some days you lose some, but every day you got to get up and fight. So get up off your butts and start fighting. Okay? Bye.